and welcome our esteemed panelists as well as all of our participants for making time during a busy Wednesday and for joining us for the second episode of the Water Table. The OHI is a registered charity. Most of you online talk with us at some point in time, and so you would know that our original mandate was just Headwaters, but the evolution of Ontario's planning regime and Great Lakes Protection Act and so on integrated so many things, and we found ourselves playing in unexpected fora. And so we had our mandate, our letters patent expanded, and we kept the name, but we're a full watershed management organization. We have extensive website, which for which Margaret will be posting a few links in the chat. And this is a second webinar in our new series, The Water Table, designed to facilitate and welcome discussion for better collective action to protect our waters and watershed health. In the post that in the chat that Margaret already has posted, I believe, you will see the links to the webinars from the presentations from our first webinar on watershed management. This webinar today takes that a step further, not just watershed management, but the question is Ontario's system of land use planning protecting our waters? Most of you would probably be aware of the panoply of extensive acts and regulations seeking to protect natural heritage, species at risk, and water. And that runs the gambit from the Planning Act and the Conservation Authorities Act, the Clean Water Act, and so on, the Environmental Assessment Act, and on, including under the PPS, special policy areas such as the Greenbelt. So Margaret, if you could post the first question. The context of all of those that we look at, that we boil this down to, is that is the major contention and vision of the provincial policy statement that planning authorities shall protect, improve, or restore the quality and quantity of water while using the watershed as the ecological meaningful scale of integrated and long-term planning. There are also statements in the PPS about cumulative monitoring, about implementation. It's an extraordinary internationally award-winning document, and yet I don't believe we're living up to it. So, hello. So in order to help us today in that regard, we have three really wonderful panelists. Crystal Ann Roussel from CELA is going to talk to us about healthy water and sustainable planning. She'll do a much better treatment of what I just described. Kevin Thomason is with the Grand River Environment Network. Now, the Grand was excluded from the Greenbelt. And as a result, and it's in reaction to that, people in Waterloo had really wanted to be in the Greenbelt, and they really wanted to protect their natural heritage and water. And they developed what I consider, what Kevin's going to describe as the best land use planning regime in Ontario. Thank you, Margaret. The poll is in. Can everybody see it?
Yeah, so, Andrew, I just wanted to say your toolbar is kind of blocking your slides there at the bottom.
Yeah.
For your Zoom. Here's some of your slides at the bottom are cut.
Thank you. And so we're going to be provided with some direction. After Crystal Ann and Kevin, Ryan Bowie from the Chiefs of Ontario will not only provide us with an indication of a First Nations perspective, but remind us of the duty to consult. And while the OHI can be really upset that the policies aren't being implemented, I think First Nations are being significantly ignored in consultation. And Ryan is even going to suggest that we need to go from beyond consultation to engaging First Nations in implementation. And we'll introduce those a bit better as I introduce each individual. For our part, we believe that the province's direction on land use planning and watershed management is fractured and faltering, and that these regimes need to be replaced with a holistic perspective and interagency collaboration. We're facing an incredible number of global imperatives, anything from the climate crisis and the loss of biodiversity to an Ontario significant absence of wetlands. Food security is becoming a global issue and an Ontario issue. The climate change is affecting California and other southern US breadbasket states, including Texas. There's 8 states serviced by the Ogallala Aquifer. And so not only we have climate change affecting the mountain runoff for the farms in California, but they're sucking the Ogallala Aquifer dry in the 8 states that draw from it. And we really need to pay attention to food security. And then, of course, we don't really have a vision for sustainable urban form. Now, Margaret, could you please put up poll number 2? Ooh, how do I go back? So what we've done, and I'll talk about this a little later, is that we've created an open letter to the leaders of the 3 provincial parties to suggest that they need to adopt an integrated planning framework for land and waters as one. So I'll address that at 7:30, invite you to sign it. But I do not wish to take any more time on that now, but get us into the meat of the evening. Could you please fill out poll? It says poll 1, but it's poll 2. While you're doing that, I am going to try to keep to my schedule. And as we always do, and as I alluded to earlier, it's really important at this juncture in history to address reconciliation. And, you know, Ontario was originally inhabited by some great First Nations that had extensive territory, includes the Anishinaabeg, Cree, Haudenosaunee, Huron-Wendat, and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. And my sense is that in spite of some high water achievements for informal collaboration and things like the Dish with One Spoon treaty and those really amazing things, the history of European settlement has raised significant questions about our commitment to those treaties, the clarity on inherent rights, and the tragic behavior, discrimination, and forced ejection and cultural genocide. And yesterday, Ryerson changed its name. So there's a lot of reasons that we really need to embrace truth and reconciliation and move forward. The OHI supports the blending of traditional ecological knowledge with emerging science into a vision that sees land and water as one and that commits society to ecological integrity through stewardship. The poll results are in, and we have 100% on the first 2 categories. No, water is under considered, and some but not enough. So I think we're all pretty much on the same wavelength.